You are listening to Radio Belvaspata, South Africa. This show is dedicated to those who live and love from the heart in infinite ways. In today's episode, we will discuss, share, gain insights, and get clarity on the wisdom and teachings of the mystic and seer Almin, as well as discover more about the miraculous healing modality called Belvaspata. Your host for this show is Paul.
Good evening, everyone. I'm your host, Paul, for this edition of Radio Belvaspata, South Africa, broadcasting live out of Benoni, east of Johannesburg, not only throughout South Africa, but throughout our beautiful northern, southern, east, and west hemispheres, if we've got all of those things. Tonight, we're going to be talking about universal transcendence, new worlds arriving. Socrates, the great philosopher, says that an unexamined life is not worth living. The seer Almin says, propelled by an adventurous perspective, we must thrust our exploration beyond existing assumptions, dissolving previous belief systems along the way. We're now going to open up with an old audio track from the seer Almin called The Gift of Duality. And you know, it's amazing how many times we can play similar or the same tracks on the show, how our perspective has changed every time we listen to it. So let's look at all of this, but let's look at the questions. Has duality shifted? Are we more able to self-examine ourselves without judgment? Monetary value alignments are shifting, and are we more able to trust our own being to provide for us, no matter what? Chaos and order seem to be living together as brother and sister rowing the same boat. The fires of hell are still burning. The bridge of no time and no space are certainly protecting us by unveiling through the mist each rung as we step through it. And here's a big one that I've just been looking at today, that fearing fear is just opposition to the old. Let's listen now to the seer Almin as she tells us and teaches us about the gift of duality.
So the gift of duality are the 7 levels of perception. 4 actually are in duality and 3 of them are in oneness. But it is there where it begins. It teaches us that there are these 7 ways to observe life. That is very important. We bring that forward with us. Also, the gift that it gives is our inner family. But let's just look, for example, at these perspectives. The time maps, I've drawn 4 that we can access. Let's say we are hitting a bump in the road of our life. This is not a reality we want to live. Okay, along comes somebody that wants to break into our house and steal our property. Not our reality. We don't need these hard knocks anymore. You can look at it from one level. You can look at it from the God level. And you can say, okay, what am I depleting my environment of? For example, a master interacts sparingly with others. Because if they do not, if they're there to play all the games, it drains themselves and they drain others. So they interact sparingly. And when they interact, it's deep and meaningful. So this is the God perspective. The shamanic perspective would be, I can take my house and put it in stealth mode. I can put it in a pocket of completely different quality, and the one down here will not even be able to see it. If you raise it high enough, the thief can't see it. He will look and see an empty piece of property. Or you'll see an old empty house standing there. He won't see your beautiful home. the shamanic, the magical, the healing through remembered oneness perspective, and the mystical perspective in physicality, those are the ones that lift you into different time maps so that you can raise above by changing your perspective, the bump in the road. As you go into oneness, there are the additional 3 of metaphysics, of godhood, and then the ongoing revelation of infinite intent. Those perspectives, again, anything that you wish to lift up and over, you do it with those perspectives. How can you possibly then ever fear anything in the future? Because even if the worst thing that one fears comes about, you will find that you can lift yourself up and over. In the past, I have said, trust that the infinite will lift you up and over. You are becoming one with the infinite. There is a spiritual maturity that you're reaching. This is the gift of the 7 perspectives.
And there the Seer Almin was saying that we need to really work with the understanding very deeply that the infinite will always lift us up and over. And thinking about it, if we didn't have duality, we wouldn't know the difference between anything, would we? So that's something to really consider as we're going along. The date today is Thursday, September the 7th, 2017. The mantra of the day says, I gratefully accept the foolish or undone deeds of the past. For it is through shadow that I was guided to find the light. And the beautiful angel name Kefelek is working with us today. Absolutely incredible. Weekly prediction that we've been working with. This is the Sacred Runes of the Infinite Mother prediction, as compiled by Grand Master of the Runes, Ella Jelinek, tells us, and I'm just taking excerpts from it right now, shared world views. A radical departure from your normal way of seeing the world is required for opportunities in this situation to be maximized. Great truthfulness is required within yourself. Do not relive past patterns that no longer serve you. Let go of the ghosts of the past. Replace any confusion with a state of confidence in your ability to perceive clearly. Always anticipate clear answers. Be prepared for deep contentment and enjoyment of new life experiences. Gracefully pursue understanding whilst unveiling the beckoning mysteries of existence. Heed the call for inspiration and follow your true calling. And that's just really the last 2 aspects of this week's current weekly Sacred Rune prediction. And why I'm bringing this subject matter up, because it has been incredibly intense process the last little while. Last week's radio show was cut short for technical reasons. We think that the program host, Spreaker, had a technical issue, so it bounced us out. And we are wanting to share information all the time. But what fascinates me is that when those little events happen, how it carries over perhaps sometimes to the next week, and how it becomes more and more relevant. It's as if we're not quite ready to listen to certain things. I'm hearing that we have internet issues as well tonight, but so far so good. We seem to be running, although we started up a minute late because of that same issue. But aren't all these delays and that really incredible just to look at? I must say, after last week's show, just kind of bounced out where we couldn't play audio. It actually just got stuck, and we cut 15, 20 minutes off the show due to that thing. I was sitting here laughing really so hard within the process, just going, isn't it truly amazing is that everything is so completely unpredictable. And even a simple thing like a radio show, which is fairly easy to produce and present with all the information that we have available to us. And yet we couldn't complete that particular journey and had to redo a lot of it. And here we are this week sitting again talking about all of these processes. I was thinking a little bit earlier that, the reasons for fear within us is that we fear, I'll restart that, we fear so that we don't need to relive the past patterns. We actually fear the past. and I suppose the emotion that goes with it. But this is all really self-defeating. Are we placing value on something that has no value either? Because if something is past, it's past. It's the wanting to live in the known all the time that is keeping us there. And the Seer Almin has brought something up for us today. There's been an immense amount of activity on Almin Diary over the last few days. And have you also noticed is that we seem to move along rapidly, each day on this journey of transcendence. And then suddenly everything comes together and we reach a milestone. And I'm feeling that we've reached a milestone. And when I look at the events and the discussions we've had on the radio show over the last month or two, how it has all just absolutely come together. And we've shared perspectives and insights. We've shared our own stories and processes. But look at all of things are coming together. And tonight's show, to me, seems to be a culmination of so much process that is going on. And for that, I am really grateful to have this opportunity to be able to sit here and just speak into the microphone and share with all of you. But please share back, send us some comments. We've been receiving emails. We've been receiving some comments from our listeners around the world. Really incredible watching all of that. Another Almin Diary that came up yesterday, or I think it was the day before, was Almin says that life on earth resets itself. And if you'll remember, we were speaking few weeks ago really about what we thought was a wrinkle in time, where we were climbing higher and higher up the sides of this wrinkle of time and couldn't get over, and then suddenly we were dropping down onto the other side, and as things leveled out again. And I'm just feeling that this is so much to do with where we are. So let's just uncover a little bit of that discussion. The question was posed to Almin that please elaborate on a statement that she made, that the infinite has dropped a curtain of forgetfulness over an act in order to usher in another. Well, look at all these aspects of forgetfulness. Have you also been calling, your life is a very interesting process that goes on, because I'm calling it brain fog. And I know I said to our members here at Team Belvaspada South Africa, excuse me, that it seems the new frontier is brain fog, is that you cannot actually clear away the brain fog. There's this mist that is going on. And I equate it to a bit like the discussions we've had where we are standing on this bridge of no time, this bridge of no space, walking rung by rung down this suspended bridge between two different worlds, hanging on desperately, and the mist and the fog around us is literally so dense that we can't step forward. But I'm thinking more and more how protective that is as well for us. And if we assume it to be anything different, what is happening, we're just wanting to live in a past process, because we can only access things that we already know in terms of a memory or a journey that we'd like to undertake. But so the question was given to this year. She said, is this, and the question was, is this referring to a specific act or all of the current acts of the stage play, or all successive acts from the beginning of time? Almin answers, this is a very timely question because of what the time map shows to be coming. This is what the time map indicates for Wednesday, September the 6th, 2017. So at time of broadcast right now, we're referring to yesterday being Wednesday. She says, day 222, Angel Merenekvi, the mantra, with the forgiving eyes of a poet, I appreciate my world. With an artist's creativity, I create a life of grace and acts of kindness. The subpersonality is the inner warrior, and the field of perception that is being worked with here, resources and money. And Plehard is the angel that works with that. Don't you feel for yourself that there are changes within your subpersonalities, especially the inner warrior? And if we're not careful, we can quite easily go down this road of trying to prove points. And excuse me, I've seen aspects of within the light family around the world of so many different discussions and so many standing up and saying things in a completely different way that I would have got to know them at. And this is all the way that it is. But what I'm also seeing is that sometimes there needs to prove a point on some levels. And I'm seeing that within myself as well. And I've been very, very carefully looking at that process and making sure that there's no point to prove, but just to let things unfold. But then at the same time, maintaining my own authenticity and my own integrity, because there seems to be so much of those particular challenges going on. But check those changes to your sub-personality, if that's a valid statement or not. So Almin says that the 3rd and 6th of September marks a period of time that seems disconnected from the rest of the time map. It is a period of attitude adjustments by you that changes reality incrementally, just a little at a time. On the 6th, however, there is a large 90-degree change. It will be like changing a television channel. Life on Earth resets itself without anyone noticing. The stage play set changes and a new act is ushered in. We won't be able to tell the difference because the curtain has dropped for the previous act and its set has now been dismantled. All we know is how the stage play looks now. Almin says she has described this change in realities as a page turning in the book of life. This has been going on since the beginning of creation. Once in a very long while, the play itself finishes and a new production begins. And this happened before in October of 2005. So we're talking a little bit about that wrinkle in time that we were speaking about a few weeks ago. And that was a very detailed experience for me. It felt like we were pushing up this hill, and then just wanting to get to the other top and freewheel all the way down. But wow, this has really been such a journey. And I know many of you have shared this, and I can see it apparent in the way that things are working out. What we have now is the Master Diane sharing with us the next Principles of Hope, number 7 and 8. Enjoy the synchronicity of where we're at. Now remember, we haven't been able to play this for the last 2 weeks, but here we are, right on par.
Good evening, Paul, Nick, and all our listeners out there. We continue with our Principles of Hope. And tonight we look at principle number 7 and number 8. Number 7 speaks of the patient creation of your life as an unfolding work of art. Now it seems as if we do not have a life, we are life, which may take the form as a tree, as a human being, as a gateway, a galaxy, or even a cosmos. How wonderful to allow, to be willing, to allow this life to be experienced as that kind of work of art, moment by moment, never expecting anything nor foreseeing any imagined outcome, simply sitting in patient gratitude and adoration at what is unfolding. Now, we do know that the world of duality is forever urging us to do more, to improve, to fix, and once more to do it now, in the next moment, or the next week, or the next month. Let us, for the next week, let us look at areas in our lives of impatience, where self-importance demands attention. And in the same way as the terps cleans the paintbrushes and thins the paint and allows the artist the clarity of a perfect stroke, let us cleanse and dissolve those areas of impatience and self-importance, only to see the work of art emerging. Now this principle leads perfectly into the next, which is principle number 8, and it speaks of opening the portals of miraculous life through the silent mind and the expectant heart. Now we know that little tyrant, the mind, and we know that it produces noise by operating from a perspective of lack. It constantly feels the need to improve and to acquire, and constantly tries to control the future by recreating the lessons or the high points of the past. We know that the needy heart is voracious in its need to fill the empty void. It's almost like a black hole that sucks everything in around it to try and assuage its hunger. So for the moment, this evening, let us just leave the mind, the emotions, the expectations, the need to do, the need to improve, the memories, the personality. Let us just leave it for a moment at the door. And let us just sit and quietly perceive our own being, our presence. Now we know that this does not take any effort. There are no magic formulas needed for this. Our being waits in glorious anticipation for silence to settle, and then it shyly presents what has always been. Our being is not born. It does not die. It does not arrive like a visitor and then depart. Night or day plays no part in its presence. If our eyes are open or our eyes are closed, it makes no difference. There is no inner and there is no outer. There is no good. There is no bad. In this space, presence is all there is. It is all fulfilling. It is whole. We are whole. And in this space of utter completeness and compassion and acceptance, the mind at the doorstep is silenced. The needy heart is filled, and boundless compassion embraces all, even the mind and even the heart. Those tools can now be used gloriously, tyrannical no longer. Good night all.
And welcome back to Radio Belvas Patar, South Africa's episode for September the 7th, 2017. Here we're talking about transcending on a universal level, about coups that are coming up. We're talking about removing fear completely, and we're going to talk a little bit about chaos and order rowing the same boat as brother and sister. But I was fascinated today by a post that came up on Kiara Young's Facebook page, and literally these adventures in boundlessness enthrall me so much, because the ability that she has in order to detail what her experiences are really just highlight for me where I am at. So again, that connection is completely appreciated. But really, we've had such a process going on here within our own lives, within Nico and I, and some of the processes going on, that we are making massive decisions. And we're going against legal advice, we're going against other advice by other professionals around us, and we're just living in this amazing experience of trusting our own being. Very, very deep process indeed. And I'm going, because there is still a thought or a feeling on some level that, whoa, what's going on? But this last week has had so much chaos in it, and yet so much order. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But let's talk a little bit about Kiara. And she's saying, how's this for it? This will resonate with many of you, I'm sure. How's this adventure in boundlessness? She says, do it anyway, even if you're scared, SHIT-less. Absolutely to the point. And I think a lot of us are saying things like that as well. Just ABC, that's it, get on with it. She says it's a universal fact, in brackets probably, that pretty much all growth happens outside of your comfort zone. in order to birth ourselves to any new level, we have to go through the temporary discomfort, or at least that's a weird sensation of being momentarily in the birth canal. The best thing we can aim for is to hold this discomfort as an exciting adventure, but one way or another it can't be avoided if we want to spread wings and take flight. I've known instinctively over the last week prior to the Seer Almin announcing that a potential cosmic scenario was playing out that needed our attention, which has now been resolved, that two things were called for. Number one, an unprecedented degree of self-examination and self-scrutiny in absolutely every tiny area of life, particularly in control mechanisms of trying to remain on the solid ground of certainty of fixed structures. And number two, an intense amount of focus placed on more deeply establishing the new reality that has profoundly opened up since the full solar eclipse. In Almin's words, we are to establish and put down roots in the new reality we have just transcended to during the eclipse. It was so crystal clear to me in my own life, and Kiara is talking here, where I was still trying to retain roots in the old reality, which effectively meant the great tree of my life couldn't blossom any further. The rune below is one I've been pulling for months on end, by the way. I'll tell you about that now. There comes a time on the journey beyond the reality of duality where there is no choice left but to completely and totally uproot ourselves from where we've been standing in duality and plant ourselves anew in the reality of limitlessness. Trying to replant bits of our life while still in duality into a slightly bigger pot just doesn't work. And I've tried it. The only thing that works is to let go of the old pot entirely and take a giant leap of faith. Of course, in order to get to that point, we first have to have cultivated enough personal power to make the leap, which is exactly what I teach, but this is just a side note for the sake of this post. So at the start of this week, aided by the intense cosmic pressure to go and actually do this, I successfully managed to pull up my roots from the ground where they were firmly but uncomfortably planted and began the process of seriously putting down roots in a completely different reality. So Kara goes on to talk about how she went to go and meet a photographer that she wanted to collaborate with for several reasons. And she's really reeling at the fact that he'd just been listening to a multi-hour-long lecture and calling in exactly the people you need to take you to the next level of one's journey. And then she had contacted him within minutes. Absolutely incredible. So Kiara says, instead of what I've budgeted to get this part of the process done, we are going to a complete exchange of services. The alchemy of coming face to face with an outlet that is wholly receptive to exactly what is calling from deep within my soul to be expressed, but which I had not yet articulated, purely upon the attempt to articulate it for the first time, was so freaking surreal and magical. And when it became clear that we could already do the first part of this project on Sunday, not weeks ago, she almost hyperventilated. So Kiara came home that night, just observed herself completely calmly, in mind-blown awe at how quickly her intent was being fulfilled. And she says it would have been so much easier to revert to old patterns of self-sabotage, to freak out or buy into fear in any way. But she fully embraced the interesting experience of being seemingly in another between place while crossing from one reality to another, just noting everything and nothing else. And then she went to sleep. And how's that for crossing that bridge of no space and no time, holding on deeply? So all of that's coming up. So Kiara says the next morning, I wake up spilling over with the thrill of the adventure into completely uncharted territory. No fear, no anything else except excitement and, importantly, curiosity for the question of, what will happen if I push the boundaries in this or that direction? And this is pure creative joy to her. She says that this terrifying place that would have been her worst nightmare, even just a few weeks ago, now feels totally normal, and she can't wait to deepen her roots into the possibilities even further. It is so true that the greatest heights that we can reach become our new normal the very moment we step into them. There's so much she could say about the mechanics of this whole process, but for now she just feels impelled to share these tiny details that are the outpicturing of whole being desire to finally cut loose from all that has been binding her and all of her own creation and fly freely into the blank canvas of a newly created life. All new possibility happens beyond the confines of what we know or can predict in any way. Trying to control it is just futile. The only way to fly is having checked that your wings are sound, because this is part of the aforementioned prep work, and being willing to just leap without question, whilst trusting implicitly that the hand of the infinite will catch you and meet you more than halfway on all your efforts. And that goes hand in hand with the audio that we played from Almin, which says the infinite will pull you over those hurdles. It was the rune that Kiara has been working with, is rune number 44. It's entitled Courage. It says that courage is needed to birth the greatness that lies dormant in the situation before you. Most decisions that are effective are huge, but require courage to implement over the long haul. When inverted, decisions are being ruled by fear. Are you identifying with all of this? Tell us a lot more as you're going along. All right, so we got another aspect about fear and monetary controls and things like that. These are all playing a massive, massive role. And I know many of us are making decisions which influence our monetary incomes, etc. Nick and I are discussing all of that and working with it day by day. And quite honestly, I understand where Kiara is coming from, because just last night I was in absolute terror at some of the process. And then this morning there seems to have been a transcendence, a change in that particular process, and confidence is coming back up again. But yeah, courage is absolutely needed, and I think this eternal ascension attitude of trust and loving the self is very, very deeply ingrained. So here's an audio, it's about 2 weeks old, by the Seer Almin about why bankers control our world.
I have been asked about a specific comment that I believe I've made once or twice over the years, and that is that I traced the ages of control. Exactly what controlled man's actions, man's society, man's governments over the ages. And we traced how we went through the age of religious tyranny, when churches controlled it, and spiritual leaders basically were the power behind the throne of government. We also looked at the age of tyrants, when tyrants and conquerors were the moving force behind humanity's society. We then said, and actually the order is, at first was the tyrants, then came the religions, and then I said that after that came the bankers, and that we were still in the age of control of bankers. And I've been asked to elaborate on this. My beloved brothers and sisters, you have no idea to which extent bankers control the world. For instance, they bankrupt countries. Officially, since the Great Depression, America is bankrupt. But of course it was bailed out by the world banks. And so the banks basically own it. They do this all the time with countries to bankrupt them, such as Greece, and then they end up owning them. They have designs, for instance, on doing the same to Italy. And third world countries are owned by larger countries who do the exact same thing that is being done to them. They bankrupt a country and then they loan it money and then they basically own it. They get the taxpayers' money. It's a source of revenue for them. So the bankers definitely own so much of the world we cannot believe it. And this was necessary for them to make countries go off the gold standard to be able to get their full control. When money thrives, bankers are behind it. When it falls, bankers are behind it. All of it is just to get more and more power, control, and money. So that is where we are. So the point is, what, as the true force of governing the earth, the sacred government of the holy ones, can we do through self-government to break this incredible tyranny that has caused such immense hardship to people of many different countries. We have to find what within us still manages to control us from the outside, from our external life. And you will find that in your life, people can still push buttons, as they say. In other words, they can still get you upset, they can still get you hurt, they can still get you irritated, they can get you depressed, they can get you sad, they can get you feeling good about yourself, and they can get you feeling bad about yourself. All these is to give permission in a disempowering way to others to affect your life. You're the puppet and they pull the strings. It is particularly so when there is somebody in your life that is in constant conflict with you. Conflict requires two people, and you need to clearly evaluate the roles you play and learn your lessons, learn what to accept and what to walk away from, and do so. But these are your tools to hone your self-empowered mastery. We cannot permit others to pull our strings to this effect.
And there the Seer Almin was giving us some recent audio on why bankers control our world. Very, very deep processes. We played it about 2 weeks ago as well on the radio show. But how apparent is that now? Because so much has become obvious to us about, people pulling strings and, us allowing it and disempowering ourselves. And it's created such a state of chaos. And yet an alignment of order going along with that entire process. It's absolutely fascinating. Let's just look a little bit about some of these things. In this week's weekly prediction between the 4th and the 10th of September, still relevant, Almin tells us to ponder our timelessness. She says, ponder your timelessness, meditate on what a relief it is that there is no hurry to one who has an eternal existence. Rejoice in your limitless wealth of time so that lingering remains of the dreams of death can leave your body. And why I'm bringing this up, because I've been noticing things where, I'll be driving in the car, I'll be sitting at a traffic light, or I'll be driving, and it feels like I've been driving for ages and ages and ages. But I look at the clock in the car and it's still the same minute as I looked before. And these aspects of timelessness seem to be stretching more and more and more. Diane spoke with us a couple of weeks ago and said, how they got through so much work within a half-hour class at her school because she just evoked these aspects of timelessness. But it seems to be repeating for me where I've done an immense amount of work or processing of some particular aspect, and yet I look at the clock and it's still the same minute as it was just, not even a minute ago. Isn't that interesting? Look for that out for yourself. But really, we have to understand that there's no rush to achieve anything, that divine timing will always work out, and we need to look at it there along the way. So Almina was also discussing, the aspects of tyrants in our lives and the things that we need to look out over there. And a new post just came up on Almin Diary today about North Korea and the issues there. Seems to be facing the world, and the media is going absolutely bananas all over it about, nuclear bombs being moved and things like that. And Almin talks about the dysfunctional inner child. And we've been seeing that this week around us as well, some of those processes and relationships. But again, looking at the subpersonality is very, very important. Earlier we discussed the inner warrior. Now we're going to discuss the inner child. The question posed to Almin is, why are the problems with North Korea happening again when we already did the work on it as the sacred government? Almin says, our work has delayed it to this point, but there are some additional areas that require self-work. It has to do with the inner child. Remember what Diane was saying in the perspectives or fields of hope, number 7 and 8, that she was talking about earlier, about living in a needy heart. And that seems to rule the way, that somebody's needs seem to override everything else. And I was saying to Nicola that one of my experiences of late in the last few weeks is that people are always in integrity and in alignment with their process as long as it suits them. But as soon as they have to give some other aspect of themselves or something will change with that environment, the integrity seems to drop away. And I've been looking at that process within myself on a very, very deep thing. Anyway, if it works for you, tell us all about it. But yeah, the needy heart, very interesting. Right, the inner child becomes dysfunctional. This is according to the Almin, when it has to act out to get attention, when we don't allow it to express, and when we don't acknowledge its right to contribute. It acts out when our life is run by the child because the other subpersonalities aren't strong and expressing, such as the adult governing of our life is missing. It's viewed as weak or unable to contribute by the other subpersonalities. It tries to be grown up when it isn't respected as a child. And that's something that Nick and I have been discussing and seeing in quite avid detail over the last week. Really great that we can discuss those particular processes, but we're seeing it on an external level in our environment as well, where those particular things are really starting up, where a child is ruling, and then the neediness of another person then comes into the place, and integrity and authenticity seems to be disabled. But on the same level, we also have to understand that authenticity is something that is a perspective. And when we are just playing a role, it might not be authenticity. It might just be what it is at this moment. But then, of course, another process then comes. Very difficult not to judge it, but the chaos and need for order then comes into play. And those dynamics have been at play in our lives. Almin says, please examine your relationship with your inner child, how often it's allowed to express, and whether you value the fresh spontaneity that it could bring to your life. There's a lot of fires going on in Oregon as well at this moment. You'll recall, if you've been listening to the show regularly, we've had fires here in South Africa. We've had lots of discussions and insights about that. We've also been discussing with Darshana about the fires in her area of the world in Canada, around Vancouver area, and the bridges that are covered in smog. And now we're seeing it all coming to the fore. So Oregon on fire is the post up on Almin Diary. I'm saying the fires of hell are still burning. We'll talk about that a little bit. Vanessa from Ireland says, massive, rapid destructuring on a massive cosmic and physical scale is happening. So I'd like to just, before we go into the rest of the show now, just put another audio up now, all about Almin, talks about mastery and bliss. And she says, we need to uproot the simplistic definition of mastery that much of spirituality owes its life to. There's common conceptions of mastery that will be scrutinized as an over-polarization into the known, which is blissed out and discernible, safe and holy. That in fact, chaos and order have to row the same boat at the same time. And let's listen to Almin, Mastery and Bliss.
I frequently refer to the masters, either the ones that gather in what we very loosely term my classes, or the orders of the ascended masters all over the earth that I have the great privilege of working with in translating many of the ancient records that come out of the library. And although I have very carefully mapped out the transfigurations that occur in the fields of a human being as he or she goes through these enormous changes, metamorphosing into a master, we will not touch on that again. That is available for you in previous footage that we have shot in our books. But I want to cover the next step. And that goes like this. You see, a master is someone that has the option of the silent mind. Now, we can have a silent mind, but still be pulled out of the silent mind when we have to relate to someone. If that's the case, and we truly are in silence, when we do not have to relate, then we are indeed in what is called God consciousness. Most of the masters in the Far East are in God consciousness. And that is one of the reasons, incidentally, why they don't mingle with people too much. Who wants to be pulled out of that bliss? And then the second the very large stage of mastery, which is the final stage that humankind goes through before they actually metamorphose into the God kingdom, which is a kingdom that lies beyond that of mastery. Well, the silence of the mind that you encounter in the ascended mastery levels is total. There is automatic speaking. There's automatic writing. Sometimes, just so that you don't quite sound like a robot, you do pretend to think. You pretend to have a thought. But indeed, you do not. Your mouth speaks automatically. Now, the big point that I wish to bring home today is that our definition of masters is not one that we should hold onto as though it is the end of all knowledge. I recently spoke at a very large expo in Toronto, Canada, on a panel, and one of my panelists were asked with me and sat alongside of me exactly how one would tell if you met an ascended master. Well, his idea was the same idea that most people have. You see, the mastery that we are accustomed to here on earth, and hence that which has shaped our very definition of mastery, is one that has overgravitated into the known. The one that overgravitates into the known is indeed in a holy place, and one can easily recognize such a one. In fact, when one goes through the various stages of mastery, the stages of the deep, placid bliss, which is where you are totally into the known, is very holy and discernible to most people. When you move into the stage beyond that which you must, or you can never proceed upon the journey of life, which is not a camp, it is a journey of never-ending becoming. But if you do indeed move into the next stage, which is the re-entry of the human experience, while remembering that you are not your experiences, you look very klutzy, you look very clumsy, because you are unused to the way of mortality, even as you pretend to be that character on the stage. And all of a sudden, the master that has progressed beyond the stage in which they have gravitated into the known, into the peace, into the bliss, is suddenly defined as not being holy. You see, my brothers and sisters of light, it is not by gravitating into the known that the greatest growth and service comes to humankind, but by living on the edge, by embracing the unknown, the place where all new knowledge is gained. When a master lives embracing the unknown, evolving awareness for all life, very few people can recognize that person because they are active. They have not withdrawn from life.
And there the Seer Almin was teaching about living in mastery and bliss and how to recognize an ascended master. That's a track all the way back from 2008. Can you believe it that just 8, 9 years later, we still have relevance to that particular process? And isn't it incredible to know that as our perspectives change, so our reality can change, and so we can see things on a much more deeper level. Almin Dari also spoke this week about that there is a universal demonic attack planned, and I've really had to read through this and look at it very, very deeply, challenging my belief systems a great deal, that all the work we've done and all of this, and it's all gone, and then Almin starts to answer some of those questions. So the question really, that there was a great initiative by the Light family to raise the Earth's reality beyond the possibility of an expected attack by aliens on Earth. And she said, Almina said that they've been planning it for 5 years. She said that she hasn't told us, the question is what Almin hadn't told us how successful we've been. Almin says, if I don't elaborate on such an important matter, it's because there's something lingering that has a smoke screen around it that I'm having difficulty seeing through. Remember that Oregon is under heavy smoke from fires, is even turning the moon red. Almin goes on with this whole process. She says there is a universal demonic attack planned to clean the memory and dedication of the angel gods through a massive electrical jolt on September the 6th, and that was yesterday. The solution has not yet presented itself. Almin is asking us to stand by and she'll let us know. She says, but the obvious solutions would be, number one, to weaken the demons, which would cause an increase in cosmic chaos. So that answers what's been going on the last few weeks. It strengthens the angel gods, which would then prevent us from transcending realities as fluidly as we do by strengthening our belief systems. And 3, transcend that reality yet again, which requires achieving major new insights before then. The question was posed to Almin, how can strengthening the angel gods lock us into this current reality? We don't understand. She answers, angels embody that which is known, demons embody the questions, that which is not known. If angels hold on to the known information too strongly, it becomes belief systems. Belief systems trap awareness. That which is known must be held onto lightly. It changes all the time. Quite obviously, we are in a process where we now have to step into the unknown and let go of everything that was. And we are making a choice right at this moment to wipe clean the slate and step forward into a new reality, which is why the earth has reset itself. So there are some more discussions along the way here regarding that demonic attack. And you can go to Almin Diary to go read it in fullness. I don't want to go into the depth of it here because it is online. There was part of the question which I'd like to bring out. And the question that was then posed to Almin says, is there any connection between the demonic attack on the angel gods and the fact that there's also a date you gave for changing channels or realities? That was yesterday. Almin says there is. But let's refine our understanding about the changing of channels. We're not changing real time like we did during the eclipse. We're just changing the set and storyline of the act of the play we're in. To change a reality, the frequency component of the subatomic particles is wiped clean and changed to a different frequency. In this instance, on the 6th of September, we are still in the same frequency, but the memory is being wiped and replaced with a different memory. The intent to attack on this day is that once memory is wiped clean by the infinite, there is a momentary vulnerability to tampering with the new memories being implanted. It's a bit like when the incoming king or queen, changes guard and the old one is going out, presidential changes, etc., is that those are the moments of vulnerability in a big process. So coups happen at those particular points. The question that was then posed to Almin, please tell us about these angel gods of transcendence. Previously, all the numbers to do with the angel gods added up to the number 9. Is this still the case with these angel gods? Almin says, regarding these angel gods of transcendence, there are 3 large categories. Each carry 400 angelic orders, and the categories are called the angelic order of Astaroth, the angelic order of Hustavan, the angelic order of Misalta. And each one has 400 suborders of angels, in total 1,200 suborders. Almin says, I thought at first the names I were hearing were for individual angels, but they finally corrected me and explained that these were the names of the orders. Everything equates to the number 12. 1,200 plus the previous 1,440 orders equals 2,640. When you add these numbers together, you get 12, etc. So you can see numerology and all of those processes have all gone through a reset as well. All right, so Almin talks about the solution to the attack on the angel gods by the demonic beings. She says the second part of the solution is for the sacred government, that's us, to go through intensive self-examination by observing all the areas of our lives and of others' conduct that they try and control. All attempts to control outcomes of the future and to let go and surrender to the hand of the infinite. This weakens the demonic realms, since their very existence is based on trying to contain chaos. The last part of the solution is to understand and ponder that order and chaos are opposites and therefore an illusion. The resolving of this illusion is why this has come up in the first place. Order is the building of a reality. Chaos is its destruction to make way for remodeling and a new structure. They are both equally necessary in our eternal and ever-changing journey. When these two opposites are integrated, there is perpetual self-renewal that can be described as graceful change. They both happen at the same time. So this is the experience that we've been going through here, this chaos and order all at the same time. And the realization I've had, along with some of the members of the Light family, been posting online some of that, how they're actually both the same process, and we cannot value one above the other. One creates a comfort zone, sure, but that's the known. But it is the unknown that we need to step into, but also understanding the aspect that new orders are being formed, new levels of angel gods are coming through, and we are changing on a very, very deep level along the way. Absolutely incredible. No sleep for many of us. I know that. I can see it. It's a very, very interesting journey for me as well, how one can continue and work with all of these aspects. But there it is. What we are going to do is we're going to close our show off now with a new post that's just come up on Almeen Diary, just as we began the show today. Almeen is here invoking the angel gods of Transcendence. It's a video. I'm playing it live from my phone, connecting to Almeen Diary, and I hope that our signal will continue. But it's just a brief recording of Almeen invoking the angel gods of Transcendence. After this, I don't really want to speak much about it. I'm just going to say goodbye at this point, to say thank you for joining the show tonight. The insights have been absolutely incredible. We hope that you really got where we are going with everything, at the chaos and order in our life, and don't place value on anything more than what it is or above the other. They are both equal in their processes and their lessons and their blessings. And it is our job then to uncover the unknown. But for me, my perception right now, my insight is that the old is gone, and we need to find brand new ways for ourselves to work with, previously unknown to ourselves. It is a path of boundless discovery and adventure, and that's what we started off really with the show, with Almeen saying, grab it by both hands and move forward. And as Kiara so beautifully put there in her post, do it even if you are scared. And then the word was, SHIT-less. So there we go. Let's listen to this. I'd like to say thank you to Nico for holding the space open in the sound engineering room today. And thankfully the internet worked, and thankfully the recording platform was there for us. Let's listen to Almeen, and we will see you same time next week. Contact us. Love, praise, gratitude, and trust. Good night.
Evoking the angelic order of Asteroch. Veles Harisba. Mesut Alles klar. Bribet Urespi. Mananuch Halesut. Brubavech. Eresh bit. Elech klusar. Harvanet. Prubes kla. Belesur. Aresh Prisba. Arech Nusba. Virivech Svi. Kerenus Beles. Harech Nitva. Ekre Plut. Mene Sutvi. Arech Bilesva. Urek Manus. Herk Nelechvi. Kerevis. Velesh Parut. Mitre Ba. Evoking the angelic order of Asteroch. Veles Harisba. Mesut Alles klar. Bribet Urespi. Mananuch Halesut. Brubavech. Eresh Bit. Elech Klusar. Harvanet. Prubes Kla. Belesur. Aresh Prisba. Arech Nusba. Virivech Svi. Kerenus Beles. Harech Nitva. Ekre Plut. Mene Sutvi. Arech Bilesva. Urek Manus. Herk neleg vi. Kerevis. Velesh parut. Mitre ba. Evoking the angelic order of Afsteroch. Veles Harisba.
You've been listening to Radio Balbaspata, South Africa. Thank you for listening and sharing in our discussion. Should you have any questions with regards to the healing modality of Balbaspata or have any healing needs, please send us an email to info@balbaspata.co.za or add comments to our page on Spreaker.com so we can work on providing a suitable response. We now close this episode with the eternal ascension qualities of love, praise, gratitude and trust, and look forward to sharing again with you next week. Goodbye.